What's going on, guys? Welcome to Baseball Daily. My name's CJ. Today we're going to be talking about the ABL, the Australian Baseball League. I'm going to give you a rundown on pretty much all the teams that are in that league, and there's a couple of expansion teams as well that are going to be playing this year. This is their first year. So, the season starts in 2 days. So drop a like on this video, and let's hopefully you'll enjoy it. So let's move on to it and let's get going. All right, so the first team we're going to talk about is the mighty Perth Heat. Those guys are my boys. I love every single one of them. I played with a bunch of those guys and against a bunch of those guys growing up. They're the most successful ABL team in the history of the modern era of the ABL. So, they got 4 championships to their names, and they always make a push pretty much like every year they're in the mix. Or I think one season they've had a rough one, and then they bounced back straight away and made it back to the championship. So those guys are competitors. Andy Carl runs a good ship out there, man. I had him as my high school coach growing up, so he runs a really good program out there, and those guys are just going to get better. He's got his dad helping him out too. Don Kyle, all those guys have been around. Pretty much all of those players growing up their whole lives, so it's a good tight-knit group, and they all play well together. And even with the imports all feel like they're part of that system, and they're all growing, and getting better. So the Perth Heat always gets some of the best imports out there, so expect those guys to have big seasons, the ones that they've brought in. And a couple other players like Tim Kennelly, that guy's a veteran utility player, man. I mean, he's a solid guy, and he goes out there every day and competes, and it's just he's ready to win. And he'll pitch an inning, he'll pitch it, and he'll play the outfield the next day. It doesn't matter. He'll do anything to help the team win. And they got another Robbie Glendenning. This guy's a solid dude. Went to college. Then got drafted, and now he's playing back at the Heat. And now he's still for the Pirates too. He's having a good season out there, and he's been dominating so far. And he had a really good season in the ABL last year too. So expect to see big things for both of those guys, man. It's going to be a nice year for the ABL, and I'd like to see the Perth Heat have a nice shot at winning it this year. So we'll see how it goes. They have one big loss, and that's with Luke Hughes going over to Melbourne Aces. So that's actually probably one of the biggest moves in like ABL history so far. Because he's been on that Heat roster ever since they've been a thing. So he's one of their main guys, and it's going to be tough for them to bounce back and lose that huge bat in the lineup. Because he's your 3-4 hitter every season. And he's driving in 16 home runs in a season. He's just one of those guys that are gonna go out there and hit a bunch of home runs, and losing that's going to be their biggest challenge. But look for the Perth Heat to make a big run and try and do something this year for sure. All right, we'll move on to the next team. All right, so the second team we're going to talk about is the Sydney Blue Sox. These guys are under new ownership this year, so the ABL just announced that they're going to have privatization on pretty much all their teams, so they're all going to be owned by like single groups of owners, and that's actually a good thing. So players can get paid more. It just incentivizes owners to want to produce a better product for the league. So it's awesome, and it's a good thing. So Sydney Blue Sox are looking to do that. They're looking to do on and off the field improvements. They're looking to get more people in their stadiums. Whether that means they relocate or whatever. I mean, they got a big city that they can play with. They can go rural. They can go into the city. They have all that option. It's just they have to take advantage of that, and they have the pieces to make a decent run every year. That they're not that championship team yet. They do need to get a few pieces so that way they can move forward. They're just missing a few pieces to make them like a successful ball club. They have good guys and they have a solid young core, but I mean, they're not that championship team, and it's sad to say, but they're not a championship team yet, and they can be further down the line. With this whole league change, it's going to be a good thing for them, and they can get better players and bigger stars and stuff like that to come play for them. So look for them to improve further down the line. I don't think this year is going to be their year. They do have some decent guys in their roster already, like Todd Van Stensel, and then they got a Dutch outfielder, Dwayne Kemp, who he recently joined the Blue Sox, so we'll see how it goes this year. I don't expect them to be a championship team. I've said that. I've been saying that, but I expected them to have a decent run and win a few games. All right, so we'll move on to the next team. All right, so the third team we're going to talk about is the Melbourne Aces. These guys have been runners-up twice, once in the 2011-2012 season, and then recently in the 2016-2017 season. These guys have had stars like Ronald Acuna Jr. Now they have recently Luke Hughes, which we talked about earlier, which is a big loss to the Perth Heat. This is the big gain for the Melbourne Aces. This guy's a power hitter. He's always driving in runs. He's just a tough out, and he's always going to give it 100% when he's on that field. And expect to see him pumping up guys in the dugout all season long. Man, he's one of those guys. He's a leader, and he controls the dugout and the dressing room. Man, he's a tough guy, and he always goes out hard. So, expect to see him do big things to that ball club, and especially in a different role as well, further down the line, what they promised him. So I hope he does well in Melbourne, and I expect big things out of that ball club this year. So, look to have them have a push for the playoffs. They always do, and they always will. So they're a solid ball club, man. Expect them to be in the mix every year. Expect them to be there. They also have veteran Delman Young, man. That guy, bounced around in the big leagues a little bit, but he's hitting home runs in the ABL for Melbourne Aces. So check them out, man. I mean, you can see all of his highlights from last year as well. He dropped a few absolute tanks. So expect big things from these guys. All right, we'll move on to the next team. All right, so the fourth team we're talking about is back-to-back champions of the ABL, which is the Brisbane Bandits, man. These guys have been a solid ball club for the last 3 or 4 years, and they're showing it, man. They got a great pitching staff. Travis Blackley, Ryan Bollinger, these guys are studs, in the ABL, and Bollinger's for the Yankees, balling out this year. These guys are killing it. They're going to be a tough team to beat this year, and expect to see them go for number 4. They're trying for it. They're trying to catch up to that Perth Heat, to the same number as those guys. We'll see. It's going to be a battle between those two. I hope to see those guys in the playoffs at some point this year play against each other. Because those two teams are rock solid, and they expect big championships. And to get more and more. They want those rings, man. They give them nice looking rings in the ABL. They do. And, expect another season out of those guys. Their pitching staff is their biggest key. It always has been. They always had really, really good pitching in Brisbane. So they'll do the job for sure. They're looking for number 4. Expect that. They're looking to get there, and so they're a scary team. And they got some big bats in their lineup as well, man. They'll score some runs on you. They'll score some runs for sure. They scored 16 on Tuatara the other night. In their preseason, just like that. It was quick. So, they got some swingers and they got some pitchers, dude. So they'll be a nice team to watch, and expect big things out of them for sure. All right, we'll move on to the next one. All right, so number 5 is the Canberra Cavalry, man. These guys are a pretty decent squad. They got some nice Australian players out there, and they got some nice imports that come in and always do the job for them. They've been to the championship 3 times, only won 1 of those. So, then that was back in 2012 and the 2013 season. So, they got four Japanese imports from the Yokohama Bay Stars. So that's a big pickup for them. Anytime the Japanese guys come into the league, they do a really good job, man. I mean, the Japanese baseball is huge, and it's really, really good. So, they always send some of their best prospects, and those guys always generally do a really good job. I've known in one occasion where it was kind of like a bust, but most of the time, the Japanese guys that come into the league, they do a really good job and get things done, and they outwork a lot of people. So it's a good thing for the league to have those guys come in. I'm down for anybody to come and play in any league. That should just how it be. The best players should play. So they're gonna bring in those Japanese guys, and they're gonna play, and they're gonna do what they got to do to get better. So, and hopefully make their Japanese team out there. So that's what they're trying to do, and that's it's their off season, so they're just trying to get better as well. Bossman Oroa is back again, and he's always a big power threat for Canberra. He's one of the best power hitters in the ABL, and that's why he was signed by the Red Sox. So that's just they'll have another team that's solid, and expect them to be in the mix for sure. They can always surprise you when it comes down to the playoffs. They've made those runs before. They've been there. They've won 1 already. So expect them to try and beat you. Every game they'll go out and play hard. So all right, we'll move on to the next team for sure. All right, so number 6 is the Adelaide Bite. These guys are everybody's second favorite team just because they come runner-up all the time. Back in 2010, 2011, they lost to the Heat, and then they were back-to-back seasons where they lost both the 2 seasons in a row. They lost in the championship, and that was 2014 and 15, and also 2015 and 16 seasons, man. So they're looking for their first championship. That's what they want. That's what these guys are playing for. They made some moves and brought some different guys in. Stephen Waltz is going to hold it down at first base again for these guys, and they also picked up Aaron Whitefield, who's been on the Bandits roster for the last few seasons, but he's a young guy in the Twins system that's coming out hard, and he was the Rookie of the Year for the ABL on his first season, so he's trying to come back and do some things for the Bite and get more playing time and try and help them win their first championship. I'm sure that's the plan for all those guys that are playing there. They could surprise you. They're one of those teams that could swoop in and surprise you at the end. And if they make a playoff push, you never know. Like I said, they've been to the playoffs before. They've been to that championship. They've been unlucky to face really good teams in the past. Who in my opinion were better. So. It's up to them to see how they go. They made the right moves to get some guys in, and they're filling up the stadium for sure. So they're doing everything right on and off the field. So look for them. They're a surprise pick, but they could be around. All right, we'll move on to the next team. All right, so the 7th team we're going to talk about is Geelong Korea. These guys are a team full of Korean guys that have played in KBO, all that sort of stuff. So it's all Koreans from top to bottom. All their coaching staff's Koreans. They're just based in Geelong, which is awesome. This is cool for the league. It's something new. So it's going to be Australian guys playing against a bunch of Korean guys, and it's awesome. It's good. It's good to see. And they struck a deal with those guys to bring them in and let them play against our ABL teams. So Geelong Korea could be something that it could surprise a bunch of people and come out of nowhere. They have the pieces to be able to do that. They got some solid guys that have played in the KBO before, and they have their coach, Dae-Sung Koo. He's been in the ABL. He's pitched for the Sydney Blue Sox, so he knows the system. He knows how it works. So that's a good start for them. That's just right off the bat, they have a good start, and we'll see how it goes. Their social media accounts have been really quiet, and so they're keeping things really on wraps. And we'll see how it goes for the first time, when the season starts. So I don't expect much. I expect them to go out and win some games for sure, because they're going to have a good team that's going to go out there and get hits and stuff like that. So, but I don't know much about these guys yet. But as the season unfolds, we'll see how it happens. All right, we'll move on to the last and final team. All right, so the 8th and final team we're going to be talking about is the Auckland Tuatara. These guys are the first ever professional baseball team in New Zealand, and they're joining the ABL this year. So they got a mix of a bunch of imports, guys from the USA, Japan. I think they got a guy from Taiwan and a guy from China as well. They have a few New Zealanders, 3 on the roster that are from New Zealand. So that's awesome for those guys, to be a part of the first professional baseball team in New Zealand, and they have 3 New Zealand guys on that roster. That's big for them, and I'm happy for them that they're going to be a part of that and be able to play in their home country, and as a professional baseball player. So that's awesome, and it's a big step for those guys and for baseball in New Zealand too. So that's just one step forward, and that's a big move, and I applaud those guys, and it's awesome to see. So I don't expect much. I expect them to try and compete as much as possible, and we'll see how it goes. You never know with expansion teams. They could be really hot off the start and get things going, or they can just be a complete flop. So you never know. These guys are looking to play hard every game and looking to win. So they trust themselves to win the games, and we'll see how it goes. It's a tough league. There's more established teams, so it's going to be hard to come into a league brand new off the bat with a bunch of guys who've never played together and hopefully win. It's the same sort of situation with Geelong Korea, but we just don't know. We don't know what they're going to be like. Preseason's over. They have had 3 games against the Bandits, so and their first game's against the Perth Heat that's coming up in a couple of days. I'll be watching, and we'll just keep you updated on what these guys are like. But I'll be watching for sure. But thanks for checking out this video, guys. Please like, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, please drop a follow on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe on YouTube and hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. We're available all the time to talk or whatever you want to do. Send me questions, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, please, I'll be around. Thanks, guys.